Hello everybody, this is Reggie Time, and today I want to talk about some Microstakes grinder problems that I've come across during my time as a player, for sure, as a coach, mentor, as just was talking with my peers. I want to talk about a couple of the common problems that many micro grinders face, and the pitfalls that many of us fail to avoid. So a short while ago, just a few days ago, I made a post to my Facebook group and I asked for players to send me their databases so I could take a look at some and maybe do some basic leak finding, hopefully for the video series. And I got some videos, I got some databases sent, maybe 5 or 6 players sent me the databases, and one of them I couldn't import at the time of this video. Then I couldn't open it somehow, a bit of a technophobe. But anyways, I got about maybe 600,000 to 700,000 hands imported from 5 people. And I looked at several of those databases after importing the hands, and kind of like the headline stats of pretty much every player all fell within what would be considered like reasonable parameters. It was pretty hard to spot any fundamental leaks from the numbers that I saw. There was no guys playing excessively loose. There was no guys who were overfolding or underfolding to 3-bets. There was no guys with outrageous c-bet statistics. There was no guys without any major positional flaws in their trend from early position to the button. All the things that I'm used to looking for and finding in kind of significant losing players, they're just not there in the more like average, solid, break-even / slight losing player. That the leaks I'm used to finding in the lesser players aren't there in these types of players. Basically, I guess what I'm saying is that the guys sending me the hands clearly had a pretty good idea of what they were doing, and it was very obvious to me that none of them could even be described as loosely described as bad at poker. They are generally good at poker. They're not crushers. If they were crushers, they wouldn't be sending me the database. But there's in no way, shape or form could you say these guys are bad at poker. So why are they all losing or breaking even? And that's the question all these guys are asking themselves. That's why they're sending me their hands. And I think it's not as much to do with what they're doing at the tables when they're playing as much as to do with their how they react and how they respond to downswings and what have you. To me, the first and most obvious answer is that no limit hold'em just isn't easy anymore. It's just there's no easy gigs anywhere. Some sectors softer than others, of course, but in modern online poker on all the major sites, no limit hold'em is a tough game. And I don't give a shit whether you're talking about 5-0 or 25-0. I don't really care what the forums say about how crushable 10-0 Zoom is, because maybe it is over a sample size of 100,000 hands or something, but it just isn't that crushable. I don't care what anyone says, it just isn't. Well, not at least for the vast majority of players. The guys that are capable of crushing it are probably the guys that are just incredibly talented, and they're on a long upward curve. For most guys, for most regular Microstakes grinders, no limit hold'em is not an easy gig, and it shouldn't be, and no one should expect it or describe it as an easy gig, and I include myself in that. It just isn't easy. If we veer off our A game for any period of time, the game absolutely ruthlessly punishes us. A common trend in the scores and scores graphs I've seen down the years from players that I've worked with, from my own graphs, from friends, is we'll do pretty well for quite a while, probably aided by some kind of positive variance, be that situational, that we're just running good in terms of we're getting more pocket aces, more pocket kings, more queens, we're making more strong hands post flop, we're hitting more often with our ace kings when we 3-bet, all those types of things, or we're just flat out running way above EV. And then what happens then is it's human nature most of the time, we will develop a really inaccurate sense of where we stand in the games that we play. We'll overestimate our own edge in the games, and we'll underestimate how tough the games are, and we'll see that 10 big blind win rate over 40k hands, 60k hands or whatever, and we'll convince ourselves that even allowing for the heater that we know we've had in the back of our mind, our win rate is still better than our peers and better than it actually is going to be long term. So when our upswing slows down, or it levels off, or even starts to recede slightly, we often are very prone to start making some bad decisions. We find it hard to believe that it's possible for us to have gone 2 weeks or 20,000 hands or 30,000 hands of breaking even or slightly losing. We just don't believe it's possible. How can this be possible? I've just spent 3 weeks or a month or 80,000 hands or 60,000 hands crushing it. Fucking hell, what's going wrong? Why am I all of a sudden losing 2 big blinds 100 for the last 20,000 hands or whatever? It just doesn't happen to us, right? You know, we have this huge win rate. Our opponents are all terrible. The games are soft as fuck, you know. We're just not doing a good enough job of being self-aware enough and like conducting objective self-appraisals, because we've allowed ourselves to get caught up in our own self-confidence, our own complacency, and quite often our own bullshit, and we've swallowed a lot of the bullshit that you see on forums about how crushable No Limit Hold'em is. And then what happens from that is often we'll end up making some bad decisions, usually concerning volume. We'll start squeezing extra sessions in here and there at times that we don't usually play. So maybe the kids are running around, maybe your wife or your girlfriend's in your ear, maybe she's got the TV on, maybe there's just other distractions, or maybe we just play when the games aren't as good as we're used to them being, and we're just playing against more regulars in tougher games. And it's just like a really bad practice. You don't want to be doing that. We might start adding extra tables, like labouring under the misguided impression that it'll get us through this bad period more quickly. If we play more hands, we add more tables, we'll get through this run back quicker, and we'll get back to being that 10 big blind 100 winner that we know we are, which is of course nonsense. And those things are generally, they're just pretty terrible things to do. When our results are like less than stellar, most of the time all we end up doing is adding volume, adding hands per hour, and just reducing the quality of our play further at the very time that we increase our volume, which on all that is ever going to do, or most of the time all it's going to do, is just accelerate our losses. We're going to be losing more big blinds per hour. We're going to have a lower hourly rate. All these things are really, really quite destructive and very, very damaging. More often than we would like, this will turn a break-even stretch or a minor downswing into a calamitous downswing that could take weeks or even months to recover from. And for some guys, they never recover. They just quit playing poker, or they go and do something else. They play a different format of poker. We should often just like take a break at this point and just, instead of adding volume and stuff, just think, right, what's going on here? What are we doing? What is the crack? But we don't. We just kind of draw a line in the sand and we try to create a new beginning out of nothing. And I'm sure we've all done it a million times. You've either deleted your database and wanted a fresh start, or you've purged like all your hands out, or you've done whatever. You've done something to like try and create a new beginning without ever actually dealing with the problems that led you to want to like create this new beginning. And by not addressing what actually went wrong, we are just so very vulnerable to the same thing happening over and over again. So many players just go through this boom and bust cycle, repeating itself over and over and over. And it's, in my opinion, the biggest reason why so many of us find it so hard to make any real progress through the limits. I mean, there's lots of players, not myself, fortunately, but that have been stuck at 5-0 or 10-0 for what seems like, or what might even be, forever. And these guys are not fish. If you are a player that's never got out of like the lowest levels, don't think I'm a fish, you know, I'm bad at poker and I need to work harder on my game. Because a lot of the time, yes, we always need to continue working on our game, but if we ignore some fundamental mistakes we're making with that approach to the game, it doesn't really matter how much effort you put into constructing even better and better 4 and 5 bet ranges. You're just not going to be delivering your A game as consistently as you would like to. I've had conversations with, God knows, hundreds of players probably down the years, and who have never been consistent winning players. And contrary to like what you read on the forums and what you read on or what you'll hear people talking about, contrary to all that popular belief, all these people, they're not just shoals and shoals of clueless fish. It really fucking boils my piss up when I see regulars calling other regulars like fish. He's 22/17 with a 5% 3-bet, but he's a fish. I'm like, really? That guy isn't a fish. He isn't. He might be slightly worse than you. He might not produce his A game as often as you, but he isn't a fish. And to assume that and to make those statements is just utterly nonsensical. In my opinion, most of these guys we've been talking about are guys that play well. They play well, genuinely do play good poker 70 to 80% of the time. But time and time again, they come undone by not handling downswings or not being able to handle break-even stretches, and that is a critical difference. Another key factor, I would imagine almost every one of us, is playing too many tables for almost all of us. Now, one of the samples I saw was from a guy playing on average. He's played 800 hands per hour, and he seems like a pretty talented player. His stats, they were there, they were up there, they were good stats. If you were to put your stats on the forum, you'd find it hard to pick too many holes in them. But he's just not allowing his talent to come through anywhere near as much as he could do. So ask yourself why. There's like a small long-term or as a small long-term losing or break-even player. Why would you want to play such high volume if you've got good stats and you've got over a long period of time you produce good consistent stats, but you're not getting results? Why would you want to continue playing the high volume? Why wouldn't you maybe just try and, instead of increasing our hourly rate, why not try and increase your win rate? And that's why people play more hands. They play more hands because they're thinking, I want to improve my hourly, but the very notion of trying to have an hourly rate at 5NL or 10NL is completely lost on me. All we do with the Microstakes when we try and improve our hourly rate and increase our hourly rate by adding volume is we put that kind of pressure on ourselves, or too much pressure on ourselves, and we usually break and we start stringing leaks everywhere. And that's because stuff that we thought we'd learned, we haven't actually been learned to a high enough level that we can rely on it under maximum pressure. It's the Jared Tendler conscious competence is one thing, unconscious competence is completely different. And most of us, when we're playing well and playing the right amount of tables, we are consciously competent. We play well, we deliver a good win rate. When we add more tables, so we have to rely more on our unconscious competence, it's not there. We're unable to produce it. So what happens is we stop finding those thin value bets we find when we have more time to think. We stop finding those disciplined folds, and we stop finding the occasional well thought out hero call, because it's infinitely harder to do all of those things when we increase our workload. If we increase our workload from 600 hands an hour to 900 or from 200 to 400, we're simply super unlikely to play as well. Some guys can do it, most of us aren't that guy. Nanonoko will be a fantastic example of how it's done, but there'll be tens of thousands of players who tried to go down the Nanonoko route and possibly never achieved anywhere near their maximum potential whilst playing poker. Too often we just choose, or we will just take the option, the safe option, in the tougher spots over the best option. The spots where you're like, oh, should I call or should I fold? You just take the fold option rather than, oh, can I find a call here and there? Or should I bet this river? Oh, I'll just check it just to be on the safe side. And we do that because we either don't have time or we haven't got the mental energy to really think through all the spots we need to think to when we're playing high intensity, high volume poker. We just simply do not have the time to think through decisions properly, or most of us don't. Some guys, like I say, some guys are very good at doing it. The vast majority of us aren't. And what happens is we just get lazy, as silly as that sounds. We're increasing our volume, but we actually get lazy. Even though we're physically playing more hands, so we feel like we're actually working harder. In actual fact, most of the time, we're just taking a really lazy shortcut that most of the time just leads us right back to where we started, because eventually our play will deteriorate, we'll drop into B and C game, and all the hard work that we've done and all the good run we've had, we'll just undo it, and we'll end up going back to where we started. So the question then becomes, how do we break this cycle? And in my opinion, it's actually much easier than you might think. at the Microstakes, whether you're just a recreational hobbyist type player like myself, or whether you're a really ambitious hardcore grinder, just ignore any thoughts of hourly rates at the very lowest stakes. I'm talking 2NL, 5NL, even 10NL. Hourly rates at the lower stakes online, and they're never going to be great. No matter what you do, they're just never going to be great. You should be thinking about ways to maximise your win rate instead. I mean, we all know it's statistically proven that the higher our win rates are long term, the less chance we actually have of having one of these debilitating downswings or break-even stretches we talked about earlier. They're still going to happen, they're just going to happen much less frequently. So you need to think about the bigger picture. Do you really need to try and squeeze in an extra few hundred hands outside of your usual grind when you're at a loose end, but games are pretty shite for that time of day? Do you really need to put that session in when you know games are going to be bad, but you're thinking, I might as well play, I've got an hour, I may as well do something productive? If you feel the urge to be productive with poker at those times, but you also know that maybe the games are just full of tightish regulars and not too many recreational players, and I'm talking generally during the daytime on when the average Microstakes losing player is at his day job doing his work, don't play poker. Instead, just get stuck into your database, watch a training video, read the forums, log into Skype and talk to some poker friends. Just do something useful that isn't going to cause you to contribute eventually to burning out, which is kind of what you're going to do by just squeezing sessions under bad conditions. If we squeeze too many sessions in under bad conditions where we're playing in tough games, we are going to decrease our win rate, and we are going to not only decrease our win rate, we're also going to burn out too, because we're going to be playing too much under bad conditions, which isn't good for our mental game. It's not good for our long-term sustainability and durability. You should also just try playing less tables. If you normally play 4 tables of Zoom, play 2 or 3 tables. Just try cutting your volume whilst maintaining the total number of hours that you play. You might get bored from time to time, you might think this is too slow now, but when you're in those tough spots, you're going to find yourself making way better decisions. You might even find yourself more motivated to play more hours if you cut tables, start to enjoy more success and start to have an improved win rate. It might even make you find some more time to play, because I guess we're all the same. Sometimes we just don't log in because we are burned out. We're fed up, we've had enough, we're like, shit, I can't take another break-even session, I'm just not going to play. Whereas if you're playing less tables and you're enjoying more winning sessions, you would imagine you're going to be more incentivized to play more often too. So don't be that guy that's always doing the same thing that you've always done and repeating the same steps of a really bad cycle. Just break out of whatever your cycle is. Find a way to break out of it. I came at this initially expecting to find a bunch of obvious leaks in the games of the players that send me, the long-term losing and long-term break-even players. I thought they're going to have tons of leaks in the game. I'm going to be able to help them find them, and it's going to be great. But what I have found though is there really isn't very much to choose between somebody who wins at 4 big blinds for 100 and somebody who's losing at 2 big blinds for 100. And that might sound like nonsense, but I've got the evidence on my database right now that tells me that. It's the main difference for me seems to be the guy with the 4 big blind win rate is just much better at handling the regular periods of time when they can't seem to win a pot, and they're much less susceptible to falling into a lot of the traps that the peers fall into when they start adding tables or playing longer hours. It's kind of what you do when things aren't going great. That's what defines you as a poker player, not what you do when you're playing well. My A game's probably not much different to your A game, and the person next to you's A game, and the person next to you's A game. A game wise, we're all going to be very similar. It's how we respond and how we react when things aren't going our way. Can we continue playing our A game? Do we start doing things that take us off our A game? Do we actually self-destruct? If you're one of those guys who does do that, who plays his A game for a while, runs bad whilst playing his A game and breaks even and loses, and then reacts by, shit, I better add more tables to get through the downswing, or I better play more hours, I better start putting sessions in at times I'm not used to playing. If you're doing all of those things, you're actually doing more harm than good, in my opinion. So anyways, I do hope some of you have found this useful if you got this far through it. 20 minutes. I wasn't expecting to be ranting this long, but 20 minutes. If you have found it useful, please do hit the thumbs up button and leave comments. I love reading comments left on my videos, and I like seeing a few thumbs up here and there. And if you do feel that you might enjoy working more closely with me in a person-centered way to improve your own game and your approach, please do contact me by one of the methods that's like detailed beneath the video. But that's all I've got to say on this subject. I hope it's been some use to you guys, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye for now.